So essentially, what we're looking at is bringing virtual reality into the classrooms. So I teach Intro to African American Studies, I teach an intercultural competence class, and then I've been teaching Understanding Africa, and I also teach African diaspora. That's just right now, and also building more courses. So when looking at virtual reality, I'm like, how do I get students to actually think beyond the words? And using film is great. Pictures are great. I usually try to show pictures of my travels and film of my travels, but that's not always enough. So looking at the virtual reality project, I was like, that could actually be a really great idea so they can actually like be in it. So I think about some of my, I would say like some of the times in college that have kind of like transformed me really, which has been study abroad. And recognizing that a lot of students don't have the financial means to study abroad. So looking at Ghana in my African American Studies class and in Understanding Africa, obviously we look at Africa. In African American Studies, we start in Africa, obviously. Understanding Africa, we start and stay in Africa. We never move outside of Africa. So we will always be in Africa. So I can't take the whole class to West Africa, but I can bring West Africa to the class. This is a perfect way that I can do that. And I always show pictures of my friends' weddings. I always show pictures of the Cape Coast Castle. And I'm like, I need to find ways to integrate technology into the class. And this is actually the perfect way that I can do this. And I lecture on this in every single class. Now, instead of lecturing, I can actually find a way to get students to be a part of it. And instead of them just seeing a video or just hearing a lecture, they can actually see it. And now this is not a history lesson. This is actually more so a reality, right? Because these are actually historical sites that you can go and visit, and they can realize that, oh no, this is real. This isn't just the past. This is something that I can actually realize today. So I contacted Jacob, and I talked to him about the project. He was very excited about it and was like, this is actually exactly what we want to do. Yes, yes, yes. You want to do more? Please tell us. We will help you do even more. And Joseph was like, let's do even more. So this project that we'll show you actually became way more than what we intended. So the picture that was actually before, I'll show you, is me at the Cape Coast Castle. And what I did was I went to Ghana last month, and they gave me a 360 camera. And that was all I did. It was actually very simple. They showed me how to use the 360 camera, and I went to the Cape Coast Castle. It was very hot, extremely hot. It's the hot season, very dry. It was very tiring, actually. Just cannot overemphasize the time of year that this happened. And I went to the Cape Coast Castle, and I went with my friend who's a tour guide, so that was also very good because we got in early, 2 hours early, no one was there. So in a lot of the clips, you don't see people. And we took pictures of the castle. It took us 2 days. We took pictures of the castle, and then we went to the Ansen Manso, and we took pictures of that site down to the river. You'll see some little boys there. They came after school, and we took pictures of that. And then we sent them over to IT, and they used that, and we'll show you the final product, well, kind of like a beta product of the Ansen Manso, and I'll also show you pictures of the Cape Coast Castle, of what those 360 photos look like. So it was actually kind of a fun and exhausting adventure because, again, remember I said it was hot? The camera also got hot because the camera was black and it's hot. So we kept dealing with the camera overheating. So that took even more time than expected, which is why it took so long for us to do it. the camera would overheat, then we would have to wait, let the camera cool down, and then go back to it, let the camera cool down. So you have to take the camera, and since it's 360, you have to hide so that you won't be a part of the frame, and then take the film, take the picture, come back, move the camera, take another picture. So we did that over and over and over again to get the massive, massive building. So that's the picture of me taking the picture that my friend actually took a picture of that one. So Jacob and Joseph so I took the pictures in Ghana. I will also say that I received a grant from the FTLC. So I received a teaching innovation grant from them to fund this. So to pay for my stay in Ghana, to pay for the entrance. So even though my friend allowed us to go early, I said we still need to make sure that we have, that we maintain strong relationships. So a thank you for allowing us to be here all day. We appreciate it. And same thing with Ansen Manso. Also at Ansen Manso, one of the tour guides there, he actually helped create our narration for it. So we were able to thank him for that and everything, and that was all because of the grant that I received from FTLC. So this has actually been a collaborative between IT, FTLC, and then African American Studies to be able to make this happen at Grand Valley. So Jacob, if you would like to come and explain all of what you all do, I'll give you the microphone.
All right, I'll plug in here. Sound all right? All right, cool. So thanks for having me here. I just want to back up on a few points that Dr. Marie mentioned. So that email that was sent out was actually our first kind of pass at an innovation call for proposals process. Prior to coming to Grand Valley, I've been here for about 1.5 years now. Prior to Grand Valley, I was at the University of Michigan Center for Academic Innovation, which is really a center at U of M that's dedicated to implementing and actualizing innovative ideas that faculty have for teaching and learning. So we do a lot of projects with MOOCs, which are massive open online courses. So say this faculty member has a course that they do in person on anthropology, and they want to make it available to thousands and millions of people around the world. We say, like, pitch us your idea, send us the proposal, and we'll work with you. We'll give you a project manager, instructional designer, and we'll try to make that a reality. Similarly, we do that with virtual reality projects. We would have staff coming to us saying, like, hey, I want to do like a hiring manager simulation in virtual reality to train my hiring managers. And we'll take the proposal, and then we'll work with them, again, giving them a project manager, instructional designer, hooking them up with the appropriate technologies they need to do it. And so since coming here, I've been really working hard to create a similar type of process by which if a faculty or staff member has an idea for enhancing teaching and learning and they want to use new technologies, we can give them the in-kind resources to make that happen. In particular, the skill set that my team has, the innovation and research team in IT, we're particularly strong in virtual reality development. We have a lot of tools and capacity for developing in virtual reality. We also have some more emerging interests in artificial intelligence, so we're hoping to kind of spur on some more ideas for how we can maybe develop some AI tools, maybe some AI tutoring assistants that are trained on course data to help guide students through complicated material in their courses. And so we're really excited by this kind of call for proposal process that hopefully we can kind of catalyze and support faculty like Dr. Marie and really kind of innovative new ideas with technology. So this particular project, Dr. Marie pitched to us this idea of a virtual reality tour to some of these sites in Ghana. And when you're trying to do virtual reality, you really have kind of 3-ish main buckets for VR development. One is using game engines like Unity and Unreal, which create these highly interactive, customizable types of experiences. And I'm going to actually give you a quick example of what that looks like here. I'm just going to grab my computer. All right, hopefully the screen is displaying, not quite.
No, there you go.
All right. All right, everything's good. All right, except for that in the way. Awesome. So you really have three main kind of options when you're trying to develop something for virtual reality. The first option is what most people kind of think of, which is using game engines like Unity and Unreal. And you can create these highly interactive types of experiences where you can actually interact with your environment. So this is a occupational therapy simulation that my colleague Hunter's been working on. And you can see you can interact with this wheelchair. You can move the patient around. It's a very immersive type of simulation. It's very customizable. These types of projects, we're looking at multi-year, large endeavors. I mean, I think this was a year and a half, had a dedicated team of about 5 students, VR developers working on this. It's a large endeavor. I've been most interested in how can we do this on like maybe a 3 to 6 month timeline without kind of sucking up all of the human resources that we have to do this. So that we can really make this an option for a larger number of faculty. And so I've really been excited by the capabilities through Uptail, and this is the platform that we used for Dr. Marie's project here. Uptail is a platform that's going to take 360 photos and videos and allow you to overlay that with hotspots so that it makes an immersive experience that also has some interactability in it. Is it okay if I give a demo of the experience?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. So here's what we have using the Uptail platform. Sure. So what you see right here is a 360 photo that Dr. Marie took. And we do have a voice-over narration, but Dr. Marie can kind of talk over it, maybe a little bit later after we kind of go through this. And what I like about this Uptail platform is that it's really accessible through the web. I mean, you could link to this in your Blackboard course. You could send this out as an email. All it really requires is the link to this portal. There's also a QR code. If you wanted to experience this on your phone, you can actually do an augmented reality kind of display with your phone where it moves around. Additionally, if you really want the full effect, there's a wide variety of VR headsets that are available. On the cheaper end, you have things like the Google Cardboard. All you really need is a phone and this $10 cardboard headset, and you can have a fairly realistic immersive experience, just looking in the cardboard headset. This for me is like really exciting because like most professors and teachers could reasonably afford a cardboard headset to disperse to 20 or 30 students, and they can have a very realistic immersive experience. The most powerful kind of VR experience would be, of course, using the full headset. This is the Quest 3. These are going to be a little bit more expensive. The pedagogical challenge that you kind of run into with these types of headsets is that it's a little bit more of an explanation that you need to give to students before they go into this experience. So for instance, you need to usually guide them through how to hold the controllers, how to navigate through different menus, and then, that's all of like the 30-minute kind of tutorial that they get before they even get to experience this. But once they're in there, it's a highly realistic, very immersive type of experience. So I'm really excited by Uptail because it allows for all of these different means of engagement, right? If you don't have access to a $300 headset, you can simply do this on your computer through a $20 cardboard headset, or even just on your iPhone. It's very accessible. The other nice thing about this Uptail platform is that it is pretty quick to develop on. Once we have the 360 photos and the 360 images, the back end of this platform is really pretty comparable to like a PowerPoint, Google Slides. It's certainly more complicated than PowerPoint, but you can see here, this is the back end that we're kind of working in. You essentially have photo 1 off to your left-hand side, and then photo 2 is going to be over here. And if you want to click and make it like an interactive hotspot, it's as simple as kind of moving that around wherever you'd like, just like that. So I'm just going to give you a quick kind of tour. This is the actual experience again. So you can see, you can look around. This is kind of the entryway into the trail. And if you look closely, I think you can see the photographer's feet down at the bottom. That's always one of the little hidden Easter eggs of 360 filming, is that the photographer is in the picture. Usually they have to find like a little hiding spot kind of around the corner or something like that. For the most part, Dr. Marie did a really good job of hiding, but you can find some feet if you look really carefully in a few images. And so there's a lot of ways we could expand on this project, right? At the moment, this is kind of like a guided, narrated tour of this site. If we wanted to, we could have a pop-up question, and then they wouldn't be able to proceed until they got that question right. We could make branching storylines. So say like they answer one question wrong, then that needs, like the learner needs some kind of remedial information. That wrong answer will send them on a totally different track. There's also built-in voice recognition. So if, say you are in a language learning course and you wanted to practice speaking Korean or whatever language you're working in, there are some built-in voice recognition features as well that will kind of tell you if you got that word wrong or right. And so here we have a few more shots here. And I'll let Dr. Marie kind of explain this in more detail. Yeah, no, I really can't find you in any of the other shots.
This was easy to hide.
Yeah, I assume you're probably hiding behind the building here.
Our friends were hurting though. We were crouching down low.
So do you operate the camera from around the corner?
Yeah, so basically how these 360 cameras work is...
We actually just joined the crowd here.
Yeah. So
that's me right there. You just joined
so that's you right there.
And my friend, the tour guide,
Yeah.
who's in the tent.
So basically the way these 360 cameras work, you have a tripod with like a little kind of camera on the top of the tripod, and then you have a phone that connects to the tripod. And usually what you try to do is kind of hide around the corner, take the picture. Sometimes you have to be really creative with like how you're hiding, but most of the time it actually works pretty well if you kind of blend in with the crowd, just act natural. Obviously no learner would be like totally distracted by, this person who we know as our instructor is kind of taking the photo there.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So that's really the gist of it. Right now we're showing just 360 photos. We do have the option to also do 360 videos. So you can imagine a scene where Dr. Marie kind of walks in around the corner, says, "Hello, welcome to the Aspen-Mansell site," et cetera, et cetera. This is what we're going to talk about. Another option that we've done that if you don't want to do a 360 video, is we can actually overlay 2D videos on top of this scene. So for instance, say we're at this river scene right here, and we want to have like a 2D video of Dr. Marie pop up and kind of guide and explain what's happening. We could very easily facilitate that. Just send us a video of you kind of talking about that. And so that's pretty much it. This is the tool. This is the experience. If anybody wants to try this out, I think we can include the link with the YouTube video that's going to be posted. And I'm also happy to, if anybody wants to email me, I'm happy to kind of guide them through this in a little bit more detail. Dr. Marie, do you want to take this over from here?
Okay. So with this project, how we're doing it is we have two, the Aspen-Mansell and the Cape Coast Castle. So we actually have a group of graduate students who are helping us with the narrative for the castle, like doing research and things like that to help make the narrative. And Jacob and Joseph have also offered to teach us how to do this because we don't know what we're doing. We've never done this before, just so we can learn, which is also, I think, just really great. Just so it's just another skill that we'll have. Don't know when we'll use it, but whenever the time comes, it will be on my CV so people know, yep, I know how to do this. I'm basically a tech guru at this point. So yes. So when we look at the Aspen-Mansell, how, like if you were looking at this from my class, how I would approach this is also if I was like doing a study abroad program, right? Before we would go to the castles, we would start here. So when we look at Ghana, there were a number of slave markets. There was one big one in the north, right, at the top of the Volta River. And then we had Ansimaso, that was another one. And then we had kind of like the two main castles, which were Elmina and Cape Coast. So at the market in the north, it was about 300 miles. And people would walk those 300 miles down to Ansimanso, which is here. Chained up. And that journey was quite treacherous. I mean, if people got sick, they would get left behind. I mean, and they would honestly be left as like bait for wild animals and things like that. So then they would come this way. And I mean, and also with this tour, you also see a lot of people that wear white, because this is also kind of an ancestral, homecoming for a number of people, and they take this this tour quite seriously and as a spiritual journey. All right. Oops. All right, I'm scrolling the wrong way. There we go. So when you go on the tour, most people will take their shoes off and walk barefoot down to the river, which is also why when on the tour, on the virtual reality here, we go on the path instead of just jumping straight to the river. It's because that path is actually very intentional as part of the story. And they have it all marked. The ants are very serious. I don't like those ants. I really don't like those ants. You get down, they have a lot of the basically like the kings here, just some history in this room. The Santi Hennes. This is Roland. He's actually the one who did our narration right there. So here is the space where they would have the baths, essentially. And the time, like I said, it was the dry season. It actually was perfect because I could go down into the river to take the pictures. And as we continue, so I took a few pictures. As you can see, could get a picture up here. That wouldn't have been possible in July, because the river would be full. On the tour, they do a ceremony at this place, basically thanking the ancestors, recognizing the ancestors and the route that they took to be here. And for the folks who are on this, in a way, a pilgrimage back home, right? These are the little boys. Basically on this pilgrimage back home, again, recognizing the journey that they're taking back home. Now on the history here, people would take this bath, usually in groups of 5 or 10. And after they bathed, they would usually be wiped down with shea butter. I don't know if y'all are familiar with shea butter. And then they would be sold in this. They would be sold here. They would be branded. And then they would continue on to Elmina or to Cape Coast Castle, which was between like 30 and 45 miles more that they would walk, again, barefoot, shackled along the way, which is why when it came to the virtual reality, the 360 cameras and the project overall, I didn't want to do one or the other because we wanted a complete story. So that's the story of the general story of Anson Manso here. And I will switch over now. Any questions on that? Okay, just figured I would ask.
No, I really liked your attention to the story, because we know that people learn through stories, and that's what they remember. And so it's so much different than just reading it in a book.
Exactly.
It's so different.
Right, exactly. And so so then they would go to the castle. And these are some of the 360 photos that we took of the castle. But since they aren't in the like in Uptail yet, you don't see the 360, you just see it kind of bended that way. But you can see how massive the building is. So when I say it took us 2 days, this is why, because the space is huge. And you see it's, this is actually where people were sold, the room where people were sold. These, the one on the top left and bottom right, that's the male dungeon, and then on the bottom left is one of the female dungeons. And they have lights there, but it's still very, very dark. So we had to use flashlights and have it open. The other thing too is, even with the virtual reality, it'll be a taste, right? Like it'll be something. It still won't be the full experience, right? Like you can see the bricks. So go in and see how uneven it is. It still smells very bad. It's kind of scary because there are no windows. I mean, you can also still see, like you see how dirty it is. I mean, we can all assume what that is, right? We know what that is. So those are still there. And there's also, and I tried to get a video of him, but the camera went dead literally at the last second. But there's a man there who still practices. He practices one of the traditional spiritual practices, and he goes to the male dungeon and has a shrine there, and he's there most days in the dungeon there. And also you'll see where people will lay flowers for those who pass through in the dungeons.
Is that where they were kept before they were sold?
Before they went onto the ships.
Before they went on the ships?
So they went from the Anson Manso, were sold there. The other thing too at Anson Manso, if they weren't sold, because they would go from Anson Manso, some who weren't sold would go to the castle, but a lot of people, they would be murdered there and like buried at the river also. So that was another thing too. And then this is so that's one female dungeon, that's another female dungeon. But you saw those were smaller than, like the male dungeon is huge and deep. And this is the infamous door of no return, where you go out and there would just be the ships sitting there. And then this is the outside of the door of no return. So if you have your phones, you can click if you want to, and you can start to hear the narrative. If your volume is on, I believe it'll automatically start playing. On mine, it automatically started playing.
I will add a caveat that you're going to be prompted to either play it on the web or on the app. On the web works fine as long as you keep your phone vertical, but the app version is the best experience. So if you run into some bugs or anything, I recommend launching on the app.
Yeah, I think I chose on the web because it was faster.
Oh yeah, it starts playing right away.
Yeah. And this story, like I said, that came from the tour guide at Ansin Manso.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm really quite fond of this platform because VR is such a isolating experience that to just scan a QR code and experience something is such a blessing in VR. Typically, I would have to give you all like a 20-minute demo on how to hold the controllers and things like
Yeah.
that. And in a classroom, like that's kind of it's usually a no-go for a lot of people. Like, oh, it's like, oh, okay, I have to give a 20-minute demonstration even before I get into the thing. So this platform really brings the barrier to access way down, which I'm quite excited by.
Do you need to get permission for, I'm thinking if you did this here, people would claim that they own, like if you tried to do this room, I'm sure GVSU says that you couldn't do it, right? Because that without their permission, because they would own the art, you know what I'm saying?
So did I have to get permission from the?
Well, in your case, right, I mean, did you need permission from whoever owns or controls the site to make a VR of it and then show it publicly without paying them something, unless you did pay them something?
Yes, so that's where my friend came in, who's the tour guide. So I asked him, I said, listen, I want to do this. He said, oh no, they love me, they'll let me do anything. So he called the head of all of the, he's like the head of all of the historical sites in Ghana. And actually when we were there, we met him. So he said, oh, that's the guy. He had actually come to the castle the second day that we were there, and introduced ourselves. And they were like, oh, it's just a small camera. It's okay. As long as it wasn't a big camera. You have to pay a large fee for huge productions. But they said it's just a small 360 camera. You're not the first. You won't be the last. No problem. So,
That's been, I think, in my experience, been a similar story with a lot of my VR projects. We did a courtroom experience. And we asked the judge at 61st District Court, hey, can we just go in with a 360 camera and just kind of take some pictures of your courtroom? And he said, yeah, of course, go ahead, come on in. A lot of people are really happy to kind of let us come in and just film and record and use that material, for educational purposes. We're not generating revenue off any of this.
right, yeah. I think it's because we're not generating revenue. But we did leave, we said thank you. We said thank you.
And I usually like to send them like a link to the final experience too. Like, hey, thanks for letting us use your space. Here's what we created. Feel free to share this with your constituents or on your website or something like that.
Share the love.
Yeah.
Share the love.
So have students been able to use this yet?
Not yet. So the plan was actually not even to launch this until August, when I taught the class again. I mean, I'm teaching it now, but they just work really fast. So that's actually what it is. They just work really, really fast. Yeah, exactly. It's like when I saw it, I was like, ooh, look at y'all. Yeah, I got really excited.
What the students think and like how their reactions are different than maybe how they reacted when they learned about it before they had this.
So one student, I just told her what we were doing. She was in my class and she saw me in their office. And she was like, oh, what you doing? I said, oh, I'm going on my way to Ghana to take some pictures. Because remember when we talked about this? We were going to do virtual reality. She's like, oh, that's going to be cool. Like she actually got really excited about it and not having to listen to me talk about it. So.
It's so different though. It is. It's like a story and an experience. It's really different.
So I think that they'll be excited. And I mean, I think that just in general, learning happens, learning is deeper when it's multidimensional. When it's not just reading, when it's not just listening, when it's not just feeling, but when it's all of those things. And I think that this type of experience actually brings all of that together.
It's immersive.
Right, it actually is immersive. You get to feel, you get to hear, you get to listen, you get to all of those things at one time. And the fact that it's not a lecture that you have to keep doing over and over again. We've done it once, we've built it once, and it's here, and it's also available to the entire campus. So we've built this for everyone to be able to participate and learn from it. Any other questions?
Jacob, are there other, I mean, I'm just curious, besides this project, are there other classes that you're doing? I'm just curious about what they're doing and what other ones are.
Yep. So we have 3 main projects at the moment. Dr. Marie's is one. Courtney Topish is doing a VR courtroom experience for legal studies students. And so that's a tour of the 61st District Court, where you kind of look at like where the judge sits in location to the plaintiff and the jury and the defendant, and you know, where is the state seal located. And so that one is pretty much wrapping up, and we're actually doing a research study on it to kind of see, you know, are these legal studies students finding this engaging? Why or why not? Do they find it more engaging when they have less experience with VR headset? Because sometimes we associate novelty with like educational engagement. Like they go into this VR headset and they're like, this is really cool, I must be learning so much. But in reality, it's just like a novel type of experience. And so we're trying to kind of really gauge like how much are they actually learning from this versus how much are they just like wowed by the technology. And then the third project is Scott Trukowski's occupational therapy application, which I kind of briefly showed you. And that's basically a patient movement simulation where you're working with a patient in a wheelchair, and you have to go through the checklist of like all the things you need to do to the wheelchair before you can actually move a patient out of that wheelchair. And so that's going to be for some occupational therapy students. Those are the 3 that I can think of at the moment. There might be some others that I'm forgetting, but those are the 3 big ones. And we do have the call for proposals. It's ongoing now. It was a 1-year kind of cutoff, but we just renewed it. And so I'm hoping we can get some more faculty ideas on this next cycle. So hopefully we can get this number up to like 6 or 7 projects.
Oh, yay. That's exciting. And students are really interested. I mean, the students were really interested in participating.
Yeah.
I met with them 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, this is the section you have to work on. And if you work with undergraduate students, I know the Office of Undergraduate Research and Scholarship will, I mean, there are ways to find support to, like for that. And we're looking at different ways to engage in research with this too.
I'm really interested in not just having students be the recipients of this experience, right? Not just the consumers, but how can I empower them to also be the designers of this
Exactly.
experience? Which is what I think we're doing with this project. We have a few students that are kind of creating the narratives, creating the materials for then other students to take this virtual tour. Oh, and one other project, my grad assistant is actually doing a tour of Grand Valley for international students. So what are the resources and who are the connections you need to know about when you first come to Grand Valley as an international student? And I'm really interested in, when I empower my grad assistant to be the designer, how does that make her think differently about higher education, how higher education supports international students, what are the locations that one needs to know about? And so I think like platforms like this are exciting to me because you don't need to do a deep dive into a game engine to create in VR. You know, you just need like a little bit of know-how on a 360 camera and a little bit of know-how on the platform. And it's not a big lift. It's a bit of a lift, but not huge.
And one of the students that we're working with on the narrative, he said, what language is the narrative in? I was like, it's in English. He said, should we also do one in Pidgin? I was like, dude, if you want one in Pidgin, we can do one in Pidgin. Like, that's fine. But just thinking, it's like if having this in this kind of type of slang, broken English, if you think that that's most accessible, then like, why not? Right? Like, let's do it. And he was very excited about that. Like, no, let's do it. I'm like, well, you created the narrative. So yeah, like, let's do it. Right? So he got very excited. And I think especially because when we went to Anse my friend drove us, and he is from Cape Coast. So Anse like I said, it's like 30 miles away. So, I mean, it was like a 40-minute drive. He had never heard of it.
And he's from?
Yes. And he was like, Jakia, I was born and raised here. I have always lived here my entire life. I have never heard of this place. So all of the students in the project are Ghanaian also. So when he asked about having it in Pidgin, I was like, this could actually be, like, I could see a lot of Ghanaians, right, like learning from this, even folks who live in Ghana who may not know that like this exists, right? He's like, okay, I born, raised, did all of my schooling here, went to the university here, did not know that this place existed. So I could see this type of project not only being useful for our students here, but really being useful for folks globally. And having that student voice, and how can this be accessible to students on a global scale.
Okay,
All
thank you very
right.
much.
Thank you very much.
That's amazing.